Thank you for joining us. Our show today is with the American Jewish Committee, one of the oldest Jewish advocacy organizations, and according to the New York Times, it is widely regarded as the dean of American Jewish organizations. We'll feature a couple of AJC reports, and to update us on current issues and goals, we have Mr. Jason Isaacson, the AJC Director of Government and International Affairs. Jason Isaacson is an analyst of U.S. political and strategic affairs and an advocate for Middle East peace. Joining us also is Brian Siegal, the director of the AJC Miami and Broward offices, and they will join us following these messages.
Life Extension Foundation was established in 1977 and is now the world's largest consumer-based anti-aging organization. Life-saving achievements taken for granted today were pioneered by Life Extension Foundation decades ago. Life Extension is currently funding $10 million a year in research on significantly extending a healthy human lifespan. Diseases that once plagued humanity have largely been eradicated by scientific innovation. 3 leading causes of death in 1900 are no longer leading killers today. Smallpox killed millions before it was eliminated in 1979. Life Extension funds research to fight biological aging so that it also will become a relic of the past. To learn more, log on to lifeextensionfoundation.org.
Anywhere else, this would be a vacation on the Mediterranean. But here, it's also a journey into history. From modern Tel Aviv to the ancient cities of Herod, the Romans, the Crusaders. The history of Israel lives in all of us. Come find the Israel in you.
Find magic again. Sprout by HP. With Intel RealSense technology inside, now you can bend the rules of creativity outside.
Thank you, AJC, for more than a century of doing the sacred work of Tikkun Olam, of building a better world for us all.
Global Forum is important to me because it's an opportunity to interface with world leaders, Jewish leaders.
The power to act to me means acquiring the skill sets that I need in order to go out there and make things happen.
To recognize the impact that one individual can have by simply standing up and speaking out for what they believe.
Anti-Semitism and racism are once again on the rise. We don't want to deny it. We want to face it and fight it.
I was concerned that the Iran deal would become our Middle East policy, and that is what is happening.
AJC knows how to build bridges. The way to defeat BDS is all about building bridges.
Because BDS, make no mistake about it, is anti-Semitism.
Israel's security isn't a Democratic interest or a Republican interest. It's an American interest.
You go back to your campus, you go back to your town, knowing that you do have the support from a wider Jewish community.
It's a fantastic opportunity for young activists involved in global Jewish advocacy to come together, learn about the issues, and explore all the reasons why we care so much about global Jewry.
Together with the knowledge that you gain in the formal sessions, together with the networks that you build outside the sessions, is really what helps the Global Forum become that impactful event.
And I think by being a part of this, I'm helping in a small way to ensure the future of my people, the security of my people.
With us now is, Jason Isaacson. A pleasure to have you back on the show.
Thanks a lot.
It's been a while. Please share with our audience what is new with AJC at this time in history.
Well, AJC is extremely busy at this time in history, Richard. We are expanding our presence in Europe. In just a few days, we'll be opening an office in Warsaw. It'll be our 5th European office. It's our Central Europe office. We'll have a grand opening celebration with 400 or 500 people. And then after that, we'll be traveling to 6 other countries in Europe that will be served by this office. So it'll be Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary. And we'll have AJC delegations of 30 or so people going to each of these. That's on the international front. We're, of course, still very much involved in Middle East issues. We always have been, we always will be. We continue to follow very closely Middle East issues following the visit to Washington by Prime Minister Netanyahu last month. The President's envoy, Jason Greenblatt, is in Israel and, of course, also the West Bank this week. We engage very closely with a range of administration officials on Middle East policy regarding Iran, regarding the Israel-Palestinian conflict, regarding support for Egypt and Jordan, countries that are involved in efforts to advance regional peace and have their own problems with instability and fighting against terrorism. So that's Middle East, that's Europe. Domestically, we're highly engaged, highly involved, in some degree as a result of last year's election and the advent of a new administration with policies that are in some ways unknown and uncertain to a broad swath of the American public. There have been statements that have been made that have raised concerns about certain policies. At the same time, reassurance about the U.S.-Israel relationship. Obviously, the increase of incidents of anti-Semitism, attacks on Jewish institutions, threats against Jewish institutions, the desecration of cemeteries, the ugliness that was stirred up in the course of a very divisive campaign. These are all issues that affect our constituency, that affect our civil society partners. The comments that were made in the course of the last campaign about undocumented immigrants, antipathy expressed regarding Muslims, all of these were issues that became part of the national conversation, and AJC is very deeply involved in the national conversation, reaching out to civil society partners, trying to knit back a frayed social fabric. So it's the social dimension, the political dimension, understanding, getting to know the Trump administration, introducing ourselves to policymakers, introducing them to our constituency and our concerns. This is a process that began last year as we got to know people in the campaign, through the convention, through the election, through the transition, and now through the first 8 weeks or so of the administration. So engaging the administration, expressing our concerns, expressing our support. When Nikki Haley, the ambassador to the UN, spoke about the one-sidedness of the UN regarding Israel, we applauded those statements, as others we have applauded as well, by her and by the White House. So we're involved very heavily in engagement with the administration, watching the administration, interpreting the administration to the diplomatic corps, our friends in the diplomatic corps, including here in Miami. And we've been very busy in engaging our constituency, which is, as you know, politically active, acutely sensitive to every statement, every concern, every failure to state a policy on matters regarding anti-Semitism or other things. We've been trying to convey the proper messages to the new team in town.
You mentioned a frayed social fabric, and I'm wondering, how would you describe the difference and your anticipation with regard to the prior administration as compared to the present one?
Well, it's interesting. Of course, you had in Barack Obama a president who was sensitive to the different constituencies, minority constituencies in the United States. There's a different approach, I believe. At the same time, a consciousness of the need to reach out to minority groups. You saw an attempt to reach out during the last days of the Black History Month in February, where the president invited the presidents of historically black colleges and universities to the White House, where he visited the African American History and Culture Museum. There has been some initial engagement with Latino community, but it's been, I think, just the start. Not enough. It will grow. I'm confident. Engagement with the Jewish community to a certain degree. We had a senior official of the National Security Council speaking to the AJC Board of Governors a week or so ago in New York. We will see more of that, I'm sure, in time. But divisive messages, polarizing messages, us versus them messages that occurred in the course of the campaign will take some time to heal. And we will do what we can, working with the administration, working with our civil society partners to stand up for the values that we have always fought for. And I believe that we'll start seeing the proper response from the administration as well.
The AJC has existed now for very many years. Please tell our audience a little about the history and if your role is significantly more important today and more essential than ever.
I think you're writing our advertising copy, Richard, so thank you very much. AJC has existed for 111 years. We were founded in 1906 in response to the pogroms in Tsarist Russia and defending vulnerable Jewish communities abroad. We are still involved in efforts to defend vulnerable Jewish communities abroad, including, of course, the state of Israel. We are, I think, more essential now than ever at a time when communities, not just our community, are vulnerable, when we have a stake in maintaining the fabric of society, the constitutional order of society, when there is so much turmoil in the world, not just in the Middle East, but elsewhere, when you have an aggressive Russia, when you have an Islamic State that has posed such an enormous threat to our allies, including Israel, and to communities in Europe, and to European nations themselves. So in Europe, in the Middle East, in the United States, where our values are threatened, our allies are threatened, where our future as a whole and just and proud people with a noble history, having enunciated and defended values for thousands of years, I think all that we have fought for over the millennia is in play and in some ways in jeopardy. AJC has worked with civil society partners, with governments in the United States and around the world for generations now to defend these values, defend these principles, and defend communities that are threatened. We will continue to do so. I believe that we have never been more in demand, more essential than ever in our history.
Your message brings to mind the term tikkun olam, fixing the world in effect. I believe that is what AJC actually, to a large degree, represents mainly.
Thank you very much, Richard. That's our commitment.
Thank you so very much, sir.
Thank you.
I'll be right back.
More than 1 million Jews were shot to death in mass graves in Ukraine.
This has been described as a forgotten Holocaust.
We have identified 1,700 extermination sites, only of Jews, I mean.
This is a place of terrible pages in Ukrainian history. Jews were killed for being Jewish.
We will remember, and we will take the memory with us.
The Protecting Memory project was launched because we felt that the chapter of the mass shootings of Jews in Eastern Europe has not been sufficiently explored. We decided to launch a pilot project to see what kinds of resources it takes to protect the sites, to do the historical research, erect memorial stones, to involve the local residents. So these are living memorials.
My grandmother's family and my relatives were killed in the Holocaust. 9 of them are here in Kisling.
Ravaruska, 70 years ago, was a very small town. When the Nazis came, first they used to come like every week, and they went to grab the Jews off the street. Bullets were flying. I had to lie flat not to be shot. And they killed everybody. My parents, my brothers.
Rava-Ruska was not a place among many. It was really a huge killing center. But don't forget, every person has been killed as one.
Father Patrick Dubois, the remarkable French Catholic priest who has documented many hundreds of mass grave sites, started his work in Rava-Ruska. Why? Because his grandfather was a German prisoner of war at the site. He was the one who asked us to consider starting to protect sites.
Despite the serious problems we have in our country, we've made it. We're here today, and it makes us happy to think that the people who died here are watching us from above. And I think they'd also be happy about what they can see here. A people that so honors and remembers its past has a great future. That's why this pain touches our souls and our hearts, because today we are fighting for Ukraine's freedom.
We connect these sites to the people around them, the towns and villages from where these victims were taken. This is really the best protection. Not a fence, not a wall, but making it connected to them. It's part of their common history.
We were overwhelmed at the local response to the dedication of these memorial sites. From babies to those who were quite old and could barely walk. Very emotional for all of us.
This history teaches us that we should never forget the terrible deeds of the Nazi regime and that our children must never experience such a tragedy. That's why I think that every person living in the town of Ostrochets will make this a place of remembrance and will look after this memorial.
People of Ostrochets, you can be proud. Thank you for your help. Thank you for your caring. It really touches us deeply.
I call on your community, on your children and on your children's children, never to forget history and never to rewrite or whitewash the past. History is what it is, even when it's very tragic.
Very helpful was the education program that was initiated by the Ukrainian Center for Holocaust Studies to help educate local teachers about the history of the Holocaust and about Jewish history in their towns. And as part of the project, teachers in Rava-Ruska, working with students, decided to create a large outdoor exhibition, and the speeches of students were unbelievably moving. Also for the survivor we had with us, who simply didn't expect anything like this.
We will take care of this project in the future because it feels like it's our project that we did. And we will try to spread information to make other people interested. The history of Rava-Ruska is very closely connected to the Jewish population that once lived here. It is important not to forget.
With us now is Brian Siegal. Brian, good to have you back on the show.
Thank you, Richard. Great to be back.
Brian, we just had a very interesting conversation with Jason, and I'd like to ask you just to follow up a little bit as to some of the events locally in AJC's world here in the southeast part of the United States, in Florida, and particularly the consular event we just attended.
Thank you. Well,
I think we've discussed before how AJC really does think globally but act locally. And so we have amazing people like Jason Isaacson who are visiting world capitals, meeting with heads of state, meeting in embassies with ambassadors in Washington, D.C., with representatives of countries to the United Nations in New York. And here in Miami, one of 22 offices AJC has around the United States, we are doing similar work in terms of our diplomacy and advocacy, which is to have ongoing dialogue and discussion with international leaders, with diplomats who are stationed here in South Florida. And one of many events we do throughout the year is our Consular Corps Lunch, where we invite diplomats, and we had diplomats from over 30 different countries here to basically say thank you to them for being partners in discussions about democracy, about human rights. We, of course, with AJC, continue to discuss issues related to Israel and its right to peace and security. We also discuss the rights of the Jewish community around the world, and the fact that particularly now, whether it's even here in the United States, we see a rise in anti-Semitism, and we've seen that in Latin America and Europe in recent years as well. So we try and sensitize our friends in the diplomatic corps to the issues that are being faced by people in the Jewish community, but also by other minorities, because we know that the Jewish community is not alone in terms of an environment where minorities feel very much targeted.
Mr. Isaacson so articulately addressed the consuls here today. Tell us a little more of the significance of that opportunity for this focused group of all of these consul generals here today to have witnessed his speech.
I think at any transition, especially in terms of American leadership, but also transitions in governments around the world, there's always a sense of wondering what's coming next. And even though none of us know that, there are some people who are observers very carefully of statements and policies and government action. And AJC does that. We do that locally, and Jason does that related to international governments all over the world. And so today was an opportunity for us to express where we think things might be heading. But it was also an opportunity to show that AJC is passionate about our pluralism, about our belief that diversity should be a source of strength, not a source of weakness or division. It was also our chance to say that we are global actors, that we believe in the international community, that even though there are many flaws in many of our multilateral institutions, we still believe there are people of goodwill and that we need to find them, and we need to have people with moral courage and speak out. And so I think Jason, in speaking to these diplomats, was sending a very clear message that AJC is looking for people who stand for democracy and human rights, and we want to have a continuing dialogue with them.
Please share with our audience some of the specific projects of AJC at this time.
Absolutely. So we have offices around the world. We have continued for over 30 years taking world leaders to Israel as part of AJC's Project Interchange. So we've taken many leaders from this community, including the mayor, including representatives, journalists, heads of universities, and we've done that really all over the world. So we've taken over 6,000 very prominent individuals from different fields to Israel to see firsthand what's happening there. We are also constantly taking leaders of AJC to meet with the heads of government of countries around the world. So we have delegations that go throughout the Middle East, that go to Africa, that go to Asia, that go to Latin America, to Europe. And the fact is that we're on the ground. We have built an architecture that allows us to have ongoing discussions. AJC is in this work for the long term. We don't think we are going to overnight convince people of our policy positions, but we know that if we listen and that if we are good negotiators and that we are good diplomats, that we will have an opportunity to show people our point of view. And we look at this as a long-term endeavor, not an overnight sort of opportunity.
I think it's fascinating that AJC takes these VIPs, consuls and diplomats and business leaders to Israel from all over the world. What effect does it have on them?
A tremendous effect. So we've found that over 90% of the people who return from one of these Project Interchange seminars have a more positive feeling about Israel, and 90% of those people also come back and do something related to Israel, whether it's writing or speaking about their experiences. I think it opens up people's eyes when they go past the headlines and they are able to meet with a wide spectrum of leaders in Israel, from both the Jewish Israelis to Arab Israelis to the Palestinian Authority officials. So they hear multiple narratives and multiple perspectives, and they're able to discern and decipher the messages they receive. Our philosophy is that Israel speaks for itself, and that even with flaws like any democracy, it is a thriving democracy that stands for the rights of all its inhabitants.
And of course, AJC also represents human rights for all people worldwide.
Absolutely. We know that, first of all, we know that the Jewish community's fate is inextricably linked to that of other minorities. But we also know that we, as a Jewish community, should be the ones standing up for the rights of others. We've had the experience from the Holocaust to, obviously, millennia of being subjugated and really treated poorly, just for the fact of who we are. So we know that when we see that happening to others, it's incumbent upon us to speak out, to have our voice heard, to show solidarity, and that's what we do.
Absolutely essential, and a great pleasure again. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Richard.
Anywhere else, this would be a vacation on the Mediterranean. But here, it's also a journey into history. From modern Tel Aviv to the ancient cities of Herod, the Romans, the Crusaders. The history of Israel lives in all of us. Come find the Israel in you.
Human age reversal. We may be there already. Human studies are now ready to begin to confirm meaningful reversal of pathological aging processes. These clinical trials aim to alter older humans so that they function as much younger individuals. Even modest success will result in a paradigm shift that will impart enormous societal benefits, such as sparing Medicare from insolvency. Life extension is not standing idle while 5,000 Americans die each day from age-related illnesses. Joining us are physician scientists who want to hurry up these technologies to keep people from aging to death. While life extension is pushing these projects forward, we need financial help to ensure these studies are carried through to fruition. You can support this research by making a tax-deductible donation to Life Extension Society. All donations will be used to fund age reversal research. Join us on this essential mission.
This concludes our special show for today on the AJC. I'm Richard Peritz. Thank you for being with us.